ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सदाशिवासमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तं वन्दे गुरुपरम्परम् ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वार्धे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा कार्पण्यदोषोपहाता स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वं धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यश्रेयस्य निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमं त्वं प्रपन्नम् ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्मायेति वेदस्य मा अनिष्टः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासिः अनेना अदितेना अहोरात्रं सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवा भद्रं पश्येमक्षभिर्यजत्रः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवाग्वं सस्तनूभिः विषेमा देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति न तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्ठनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रीरिव कीर्तिपृष्ठं गिरिरिव ऊर्ध्वा पवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमास्मि रविनग्वं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्को वेदानुवाचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Narayan, Narayan, everyone. Would anybody like to do the summary for the last class? In the basically in the chapter 15, right, in last 4 shlokas, what we have done is he has talked about how he is the effulgence, he is the source of all energy in this world, right? That's what he's trying to show us. And how he is the consciousness, how he is the part of the subtlest of the elements that create life. He is immanent in all of them. He's a part of all of them. And he is the energy that activates all beings, right? Whether they are conscious or non-conscious, right? And then he is also now he's going to talk about 2 more things, right? He's going to talk about how he is the one who helps us assimilate things, right? So he's the one who's the driving source of all energy and all beings. He's the one that has created everything. Now he's going to tell us how he is also the power that allows us to do everything that's related to assimilation, right? Whether it's at a gross level, whether it's at a subtle level. That's what the next 2 shlokas are going to talk about. He's the power that allows, he's a power that allows change of energy from one form to another as we see it, right? And as we said, this is one of the most important chapters of Gita. Very small chapter, and also the last chapter where we are dealing with the philosophy, right? Philosophy of who Bhagwan Ji really is, the Gyan. This is the last chapter of actual Gyan from a philosophy perspective. It's the last chapter in which we'll find out where Bhagwan Ji will talk about who he really is, and how to see him and how to understand him to the extent that we can with our intellect, right? So let's go to, we'll start with Shloka 14 today. Vijay, do you want to read this one?
Speaking of digestive power of animate beings, the Lord says,
Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva
Agam Vaishnava Robhutvam
Praninam Dehamashritah
Praninam Deha Mastritah
Pranapana Samayuktah
Pranapa Pana Samayuktah
Panchamyannam Chaturvidham.
Pancham Yannam Chaturvidam,
Sorry,
taking the
Pacha.
form of, sorry,
It's Pacha, not Pancha. Pachamyannam Chaturvidham.
Pachamyam Chaturvidam, taking the form of Vaishnavara, the digestive power of beings, abiding in the bodies of beings and associating with prana and apana, I digest the four kind of food. Manifestation of Lord's power in digestive process. The sloka mentions four kinds of food. They are as follows.
So here, the four types of foods are not to be viewed as foods. They are to be viewed as VVGPs. They are to be viewed in the subtler, uh, their subtle form. And I think Tuina will explain just one by one. Yeah.
Masticatory. Food is masticated like rice, bread. That which is drunk, for example, milk and juices. That is squeezed, for example, sugarcane. That which is licked, for example, sauces, honey, jam. In this sloka, the Lord says, whatever may be the form of the food, digestive power of the being is part of his power, which aided by the cosmic power, drawn in with inhalation and thrown out by exhalation.
Yeah. So Vashvanaro, that is being referred to, the second word, this is basically the Jataragani. It is our digestive power. Okay. And Pran and Apan, that is being referred to here, he's basically saying that for any digestion and assimilation and elimination, it is done by Pran and Apan. So Pran is the power of Bhagwanji that allows us to assimilate, to absorb, and Apan is his energy which allows us to eliminate the waste products. So take in the essence and throw out what is not required any longer, right? And at the very physical level, the digestion that happens in the stomach is what is referred to in yoga as the Chaturagni, right? But apart from that, like now we will see how same thing, everything that is inside is outside, and gross will go to the subtle, right? So generally speaking, there are four types of foods that are that is considered, that is like, you know, if you have a whole meal, you should have those four types of foods in your plate. In any a food that is wholesome and that completes all our senses and gives us everything that we need. There are four types of foods that are required, right? If you don't have any one part of the food in your plate, what happens is that you feel incomplete in some form. And when you feel incomplete, you will tend to fill that incompleteness by an excess of some other component in your life. Okay, that is why when they serve food, if you look at the Ayurvedic methodology of how you should be eating food, they will always talk about making sure that you have a balanced meal, which consists of 4 aspects, right? The first is the masticatory food. The food that needs to be, it's like in it at a gross level, it means that it means solid foods, right? Solid foods that need to be chewed, that needs to be broken down into small pieces. It must be masticated really well before it can be taken in. If you take the food as it is, as a whole, it is unwholesome for the body. It will not help us at all. So this type of food must be broken down into small pieces for it to be useful to us. We cannot eat it by itself, right? So all your rice, your atta, dal, chawal, whatever that is, that food that we eat, the fruits that we eat, the vegetables that we eat, this all must be masticated, all solid food, right? Now, at a subtle level, it is all of the VVGP around us, right? All thoughts, all experiences that we read about, that we hear about, that we think about, right? This is this because why is this VVGP? Because the sansar around us is masticatory. The sansar around us is very gross. Okay, it must be masticated, it must be chewed upon. And what is the saliva here? What is the saliva that helps us in masticating and helps us in digesting? That saliva is actually bhakti. Okay, so that is one type of food, and the ability to digest this type of food, it comes from Bhagwanji. The second type of food is that which must be drunk. Okay, so you don't chew it, you don't think about it, you don't dwell upon it. It just has to be taken in just the way they are, right? So all kinds of liquids are the example of this. So like, you have juices, you have milk, you have water. You just take it and you drink it. You don't masticate the juices, all right? Now, at a subtle level, this is all the shastras and the scriptures. You don't debate it. You don't masticate it. You don't think about it. There is no space for debate it. It is given to you and you say, yep, all good, and I will just take it in. It is to be taken in without any debate, without any further discussion. It is the truth, you take it in. Okay. So that which is drunk. So there is VVGP around us, which needs to be masticated, needs to be thought about. Ki kya lena hai, kya nahi lena hai, what needs to be taken in, what needs to be thrown out, right? It has a lot of fiber in it. Fiber is good for us, but ultimately needs to be thrown out after you take the essence out of it, right? So, and that which is drunk, you just take it in directly. That is the scriptures that are given to us, okay? Then that which must be squeezed. So you must chew on it to squeeze the essence out of it. The example given here is sugarcane. You squeeze the value out of it and you throw the rest away. You put that drumstick in the in sambar. That's a second example of it, right? You squeeze it away and then you throw the rest out, right? So that is basically, then from the VVGPs, you take the real essence out of every VVGP. So there are some VVGPs that are given to you. You take the real essence out of it and you leave the rest. You focus only on the good things that will teach you something, things that where you are able to connect it to God. And जो नहीं समझ में आ रहा, जो नहीं वो ठीक लग रहा, आप उसको छोड़ दें. Move on. Okay, that's the other food. You're taking the essence, take the good, focus on the good factors of people, focus on the good, focus on the lesson, focus on the essence of a certain VVGP, and you leave the rest out. Take the essence, leave the rest out. Okay. Then that which must be licked. Okay. Now that which must be licked, chutneya, jams, honey, sauces जो हम लोग बनाते हैं, right? उसको आप बस चटकारा लेते हो, आप उसका अचार. It is great for taste. But if you eat your entire food, you can't make it sabzi. That can't be a large part of your life. If it is a large part of your food, it is very unwholesome, right? Too much salt, too much sugar, too much masale, it will destroy your body. You can't have a meal out of आम का अचार, है ना? You can't have a meal out of पूरा टमाटर की चटनी बनाई, बस पूरी टमाटर की चटनी खा गए हम लोग. तो नहीं खा सकते ना, टमाटर अच्छा है हमारे लिए, हम टमाटर की चटनी खाएंगे, ऐसा नहीं होता, राइट? So, so you're supposed to eat it in very, very small amounts that will add to the entire food and your experience and not take away from it. थोड़ी चटनी डालेंगे थोड़ा. So what is it in our lives? At a subtle level, this is sattvic entertainment, right? Sleep, sattvic sleep, right? In the right amounts, thoda, which adds to the rest of the experience of your life. अगर आप sleep नहीं करेंगे, your life is not going to be wholesome. And तब क्या होगा? If you don't have enough sleep in your life, then you still need energy. Your body will require energy. You will end up doing some kind of stress eating, extra eating, as an example, right? Or people have different ways of dealing with different lacunas of life, right? Like I will always end up eating more on the days I sleep less. That's me. That's how I make up for it. All of us make up for lacuna, right? Nature doesn't like lacuna. So if you don't have enough sleep, you'll find another way. You don't have achar to fulfill your taste buds. You will end up eating something else that is a lot more. You end up eating a lot more chawal. You'll end up eating a lot more something else, a sweet or whatever, right? Sweets is another example, which must be eaten only a little bit, right? Then sattvic entertainment, right? To calm us down, family ke sath baitho, have those down times to be able to give us happy energy, which will invigorate us for the next time. But again, as with everything else, 2 chapters down the line, we will talk about how every one of these things has its own ability to be either sattvic or rajasic or tamasic. Right? Sleep can be either of these 3. Your food can be any of these 3. Your yajna can be any of these 3. Your puja can be any of these 3. Your pran can be any of these 3. Right? So we will get into further details. But essentially, these are the 4 aspects for you to have a wholesome life. And what drives your ability to actually assimilate and take the energy from each of these things and make it your own, and then be able to that energy to throw away the waste is what? It is all driven by Bhagwan Ji. तो खाना हमने खाया और उसकी एनर्जी एसिमुलेट होकर अब वो हम बन गई, right? It becomes us. You eat rice, that rice becomes you. You drink juice, that juice becomes you. Who does that transformation? We don't do that transformation. Bhagwan Ji drives that energy that does that amazing transformation, that yesterday this was wheat and now it is me, my tissues. It is flowing through my body. It is flowing through my blood, right? It got converted into my bones and blood and everything else, right? That makes me up. So that is Bhagwan Ji. Now, similarly, our ability to be able to see the VVGP and take the essence out of it, our ability to masticate this, which means our ability to understand the scriptures, our ability to do the manan on the scriptures, be able to do nidhi dhyasan on scriptures, and then be able to do kirtan. Where does it come from? It is not my akal. It is not my intellect. It is not my energy कि I am so smart, मैं पढ़ के अपना I have learned how to be. मैं अपने smartness से मैंने decide कर लिया आज से हम क्रोध नहीं करेंगे. I have no such energy. This whole transformative energy also comes from Bhagwan Ji and His grace. It is His energy that allows us to understand, that allows our intellect to even do the surrender, our ego to do surrender, our ability to learn and to expand ourselves, our ability to walk the path eventually to Him. Everything is driven by His energy alone. It isn't us. It is not our energy. It is not my smartness कि पढ़ लिया हम समझ गए. जो उतना ही समझ में आएगा जितना मैंने तप किया है और उसके उस तप की वजह से भगवान जी ने जितनी ग्रेस दी. भगवान जी फ्री में ग्रेस नहीं देते, राइट? It is always like whatever I do an input on, Bhagwan Ji कहते these are my rules. You play your part, I will play my part. But without him playing his part, there is no learning. ये भी श्लोक हमने पढ़ लिया. Our ability to grasp the meaning of this श्लोक and our ability to employ this meaning, employ it on an everyday basis is what? It comes from, ultimately it comes from his grace and his energy. Okay?
The only thing to add is about the thing the sattvic activities, right? Entertainment and sleep. The reason why it's being referred to as that which is licked is because we want to stay away from attachment of any kinds. The moment you get attached to a sattvic activity, no matter what activity it is now stemming from some other bhav. So when you lick an activity, you are making sure you're engaging in it for its purpose, and that's it. You're not wholly consumed by it. That's the only point I wanted to make.
Correct. Entertainment में, for example, it's very easy for us to lose it, right? चलो हम लोग बैठे हैं, आधा घंटा मन कर रहा है, हमने कोई नेटफ्लिक्स सीरीज चालू कर दी. Half an hour, we decide, half an hour I have time, I'm going to watch this. Half an hour के बाद बंद नहीं कर रहा. Now I'm consumed by it. Now I want to know what's the next story. What's the story going on? Now I've lost my discriminatory power, right? And अब लगे हुए हम 4 घंटे तक हम वही नेटफ्लिक्स सीरीज देख रहे हैं, जो हमारी ड्यूटीज थी वो तो रह गई साइड. That is us being consumed by that entertainment. जो सात्विक entertainment होना था 30 minutes का is now become tamasic. Because now I'm doing it because I have no control over my senses, I have no control over my mind, and I'm just being taken in by my senses. I like it, I like it, I like it. I'm feeling nice about this. I want more, I want more, I want more. That's what senses do to us. Right? Visa Lakshmi, will you read with us?
Connection. Speaking about the mental process taking place in the intellect and the mind, the Lord says,
Sarvasya chaham hridi sannavishtaha.
Sarasvasyachan
Sarvasya
Sarasya
chaham
Chaham
hridi
Hridi
sannivishtaha.
Sannivishtaha.
सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टः मत्तः
Sarasya.
ज्ञानम. Will you be able to read the whole sentence?
Yeah.
One by
Yeah.
one. First, so we'll do one by one word and then we'll do the sentence. Okay. सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टः
Sarvasya Chanam Hridi Sannivishtaha.
मत्तः
Mattaha
स्मृतिर्ज्ञानम
Smritir Dhyanam
अपोहनम च.
Apomanaham cha.
अपोहनम च.
Apohanam cha.
मत्तः स्मृतिर्ज्ञानम् अपोहनं च.
Mattasmritirjnanam apohanam cha.
वेदैश्च
Vedaischa
सर्वैर्हमेव
sarvarhameva
वेद्योः.
vedyoha.
वेदैश्च सर्वैर्हमेव वेद्यः.
Vedascha sarvavairahameva vadiyoha.
वेद्यः.
Vidyaha.
वेदांत
Vedanta
श्रद्धे
pradde
दविदेव
davideva
चाहम्.
chaham.
वेदांत कृत्ये दविदेव चाहम्.
Vedanta kratteva vadideva chaham.
Sweet.
And I am seated in the heart of all. From me come memory, discriminate, and dispelling of all doubts. I am that which is to be known in the Vedas. I am the originator of Vedanta, and I am the knower of Vedas. The Lord at the root of the all knowledge. In this shloka, the word heart has been used to denote that part of the body where lies the source of all thoughts of the world and which sustains the mind. The Lord says that He is seated there, activating all the thoughts process. By holding on to Him, the individualized self retain the memory of being an aspect of all Supreme Self. This memory is fact the root cause of all memories and discriminate and also of all the power of dispel all doubts. Memory, discriminate, and dispelling of doubts are the mental process with which knowledge of Vedas can be embedded. As such, the Lord says that he is the subject of all Vedic knowledge. The conclusions drawn from the postulates of Vedas, from the content of Vedanta, and the contemplation of those postulates cumulation what is that
Realization.
okay, in the realization of the supreme truth. This is why the Lord says that he is the originator as well as the knower of Vedas. Thus in the preceding four shlokas, the Lord has described how he is embedded in the fluence of consciousness. Shloka 12 in the sustaining elements of life. Shloka 13 in the energy activating all being. Shloka 14 and is the discriminate and thoughts of all being. Shloka 15.
So this is a very good reminder to us that most of what we're reading in the Gita, right, you would know parts of it. You know, you've read books about it. You've probably heard your parents talk about it. We, of course, now understand more of the detail of a karma yogi. But you know, yeah, not to be attached to the fruits of the action, be equanimous, all of we know it. But why are we unable? Why does it not stick in our being? It does not stick in our being because we haven't fully surrendered yet to Bhagwan Ji. It is without that surrender, we are trying to do it. Bhagwan Ji is saying, you can try as much as you want. That subtle change, that subtle stickiness is where I will come and bring it for you. So what he wants, and you keep saying the same thing in Gita over again, what he wants is us to not listen. See, we have a choice. Either you can have faith in ego or you can have faith in God. There is no middle ground. There is no third option. Ego or God. We try to say, no, I'll put my faith in a powerful person. That is ego. Right? Like your boss or wherever else. It's either ego or God. In every situation and in every conversation, that's the only thing. And we are more comfortable with ego than God because we have the illusion of control. And what Bhagwan Ji is trying to highlight here is everything that you want to implement in your life, I will give you. I have the power to make you remember everything. And that's what Arjun says in the end. I remember who I am. In the last shloka of the Gita. But we just don't reach that stage of full surrender. Right? And so think of, and the other thing for you to appreciate, everything that we remember is stuff that we have to go through. So if you have, for the sake of a example, if you have trauma that you remember, right? It's because you have to go through it. That is your prarabdha. You have to masticate that VVGP, find out the essence, figure out the learning, forgive and move on. But at the same time, there is so much trauma a baby goes through that Bhagwan Ji says is not relevant to remember. And none of us remember it, no matter how much we try. So that entire source of memory, we remember and we hold on to everything that is fully relevant for us to go to the next level. Masticate and move on with our thoughts, with our being, with our practice. And as we do it, we will remember, we will have greater faith and greater remembrance of who we are. Because Bhagwan Ji will keep building the memory. You are the soul, you're not the body. And it will, people say the flick is like this.
So here this is Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannavishtaha, right? Hridi, the word in English that they are using is heart here. It's not exactly heart, but that's the closest that you can come to. The word is Hriday, right? I am in everybody's Hriday. Hriday, you know? And he is part of everybody's Hriday. Then Matta Smriti, I am the memory. Now, what is the actual memory that we need to remember apart from everything else that I've talked about, right? It is the divine memory. Divine memory, which is that of our identity. The divine memory of who we really are. He sits in that memory. Right? Jnanam, the discernment, the gyan of what is real and what is unreal. The gyan about I am not this body, mind, intellect, or chit. And last is apohanam. Apohanam is dispelling of the doubts, right? Dispelling of the doubts meaning what? No, it is not just about retaining what we need to remember. It's not about just learning, but it is also about forgetting that is not required. That is the dispelling of the doubts, forgetting what is not required, unlearning our manyataएं, which we have understood to be the way of living life, and now Gita tells us that yaar ye to sahi nahi hai tarika life jeene ka. So then we have to unlearn the habits. So not just acquire new habits, but also letting go of old habits that are not appropriate for us and that are not wholesome for us on this path. Right? So he is the one who gives us all of these abilities. He's the one who powers all these abilities. Right? And then and he also says that he is the knowledge of the Vedas. He's the knowledge of the Vedas. So he is the one that we are trying to know through Vedas. He is the object of the Vedas. He is the power with which you understand the Vedas. And ultimately, you become him through that knowledge.
You know, one of the reflections that I was having in the last couple of weeks, both from our class as well as Shalini Didi's class, I sometimes feel like we talk too much to the ego when we're talking in the class. And we keep saying Bhagwanji is he. But in reality, we know the Bhagwanji is inside of us. The he is inside of us. That's our soul. And we're trying to tell all of us that, no, identify with the soul. But in the class and the way we talk, we always say he and not we. Right? And it jumped out to me that the biggest reason we don't call ourselves God is because it will immediately stick to our ego. Immediately. So even saints, right? Like even though realized saints, when they talk about divinity and they're dripping with divinity, they only identify with soul. Karma yogis, you read their books, they are so careful about not calling themselves God because they know the moment they say it, it's coming from ego. Because as long as you have body, ego is that strong. And that's why that concept of surrendering is very important for us to realize who we are. Full surrendership.
And full surrender will lead to what ultimately? We are in the Gyan Yoga, right? Full surrender through bhakti leads to what? It leads to surrender of ego. It leads to humility, which then causes us to be granted vivek, wisdom. And with vivek comes vairagya. You cannot have vairagya without vivek. Vairagya, the dispassion. Dispassion meaning not being attached to or not being involved in this world, right? Involved का मतलब ये नहीं कि हम काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, लोगों से बात नहीं कर रहे हैं, right? It is about not holding on to things, holding on to expectations from people, holding on to results that must accrue to me, or all of those things, right? That is called being non-involved in the world, right? So from surrender, from bhakti comes vivek, from that comes dispassion, vairagya, and vairagya is that axe with which you will cut the tree from which this chapter started, the tree of this sansar, the tree of the sansar, which is an illusion, which seems like it is permanent and it has always been there, but it is constantly in a space of flux. It's always in a state of transience and is impermanent, right? So cutting off that illusion requires vairagya, the acts of vairagya. एक एक करके थोड़ा we cut that off. So that's how you know that you need to have, so that's how you connect the three shataksa, right? You have your karma yoga, which will help you cleanse your body. It will help you cleanse your antakaran, right? Physical niyam, aap physical tap karenge to cleanse your body, to get control over your indriya. From that, and then you get a control over your, not just indriya, but also control over your mind. So that's your physical tap. And then you have to do a mental tap. To have like वाणी का तप हम लोग करते हैं. वाणी का तप is considered very important. आचरण का तप, है ना? तो ये सारी चीजें are part of our karma yoga. From there, then we come to surrender, bhakti, to be able to get rid of our ego, right? And from there, then we make ourselves eligible to receive the ज्ञान. Ultimately, ज्ञान ही चाहिए. पर हमको लगता है हम सीधा ज्ञान पे नहीं पहुंच सकते. We will just simply read scriptures and that's it, बन जाएगा. But Bhagwan ji is saying what in Shloka 15? I am the one that will allow you to understand these scriptures. पढ़ लो जितना पढ़ना है. पढ़ लो जितना पढ़ना है, नहीं समझ में आएगा. We have hundreds and millions of intellectuals in this world जिनको सारे गीता के श्लोक रटे हुए होंगे, who have read all the Upanishads, all the Purans in this world, and then they can write another 5 books on that. Right? So they can read all the scriptures, they've read all the scriptures in the world. But without surrender and without having the right guru to guide them, without having the humility to say कि ये guru gamya hai, scriptures, and I will never be able to receive the essence of it. I can get shabdat. To some extent, maybe I'll even understand the bhavat. ठीक है, बहुत इंटेलेक्चुअल है, हमने बहुत चीजें पढ़ी हुई हैं, हम अपना 10 लोगों की कमेंट्रीज पढ़ के थोड़ा भावार्थ भी समझ लेंगे, राइट? गूढ़ार्थ नहीं समझ में आए. गूढ़ार्थ comes from his grace, and that grace will come when and only then when I will try and employ these principles in my life, and I will fail again and again and again, and with no cavilling and no doubt I will keep coming back to it and keep asking for help. I do not understand how to implement this in my life. I'm failing again and again. Help me. फिर guru आएंगे in some form who will teach you how to implement that. And then you will start to implement it more and more. And with every learning, you will then start to understand the Gudharth of each shlok in your life. Right? So that's how the 3 things come together, and they are always self-reinforcing. But where do we start? We start from Karma Yoga necessarily. And then we must add in Bhakti into it. Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga is absolutely important, but that does not lead to liberation. Kitna hi tap kar lo, right? Somewhere we had read, right, the importance of self-purification. And in that shlok, what we had read, कि तप बहुत जरूरी है. भगवान जी ने, Arjun had asked Bhagwan ji, कि what do I need to do to understand, to be able to cut asunder this tree? What do I need to do? Is tap enough? तो भगवान जी ने क्या कहा, तप तो जरूरी है, बहुत जरूरी है. Without tap, you will not get there. But tap alone is not enough. My grace is necessary, and that grace does not come without bhakti. So you may know, you may be the best meditator in the world with full control over your mind. You may be the most excelled person in being able to mortify your body, right? Yet you will not have jnana, and you will not be able to see Bhagwan Ji, experience Bhagwan Ji. Because all of that tap that is done on my bal, मैं कर रहा हूँ. I am the cause of this. मैं कर सकता हूँ. Without that surrender to Bhagwan Ji and without the right purpose, you get nowhere. जो तप हमने करा किसी को दिखाने के लिए, जो भी तप किया, पूजा कर, फास्टिंग किया, कुछ भी आप कर लो, कोई भी तप कर लो, बहुत मेहनत किया ऑफिस में, एनी तप दैट यू डू जिसका एंड गोल इज टू शो ऑफ टू पीपल और गेट acclaims from people, तामसिक तप है. And we'll come to it 2 chapters down the line, we will read about that. That does not lead us to Bhagwan Ji. Only sattvic tap. And sattvic tap necessarily necessitates that we must have complete surrender to Bhagwan Ji and do that tap for only one reason. And that one reason is what? Self-purification, antakaran ki shuddhi. And antakaran ki shuddhi I am doing to become eligible to receive his ज्ञान. पूजा कर रहे हैं, ठीक है. पूजा हम लोग 2 तरीके से करते हैं. एक तरीके से करते हैं, अब अच्छा लग रहा है, मुझे अच्छा लग रहा है पूजा करने से, मुझे शांति मिली. बाहर बहुत क्योस चल रहा है, मेरे आसपास बहुत क्योस चल रहा है, शांति नहीं मिलती दुनिया में. बट व्हेन आई एम सिटिंग अलोन डूइंग माय ओन पूजा, मुझे अंदर से एक शांति मिलती है, इसलिए मैं पूजा करती हूँ. वो एक्चुअली में रियल पूजा नहीं है. करो फिर भी, बट वो रियल पूजा नहीं है, वो रियल तप नहीं है, क्योंकि अभी आप अपने माइंड के लिए कर रहे हो, अपने दिल के लिए कर रहे हो. मुझे शांति मिल रही है इसलिए मैं कर रही हूँ. करते रहो करते रहो करते रहो, एक दिन ऐसा आएगा आपकी बाहर बहुत शांति मिल जाएगी. यू विल गेट अ लॉट ऑफ पीस आउटसाइड, राइट. थिंग्स आर फाइन नाउ. तब नहीं करने का मन करेगा पूजा, तब आपका दिमाग और 10 जगहों पे चलेगा, क्योंकि अब वो शांति नहीं चाहिए ना. Then your mind for all kinds of reasons will say this is not important or this is not what I want to do. Then you go and sit down and do puja because ये अनुशासन है, because this is my discipline. I must do it because I have to do this, because this is my discipline. This is for my antakaran vishuddhi. Then the real tap actually starts. So then you have to do that tap with the right bhav to get to the gyan stage. I hope you're able to pull everything together now. Why each part of Gita is structured the way it is and why it must be followed. And you cannot leave one out of the other. You cannot say ज्ञान नहीं चाहिए, हम तो खाली भक्ति करते रहेंगे. रोज all I will do is दिन भर हम सिर्फ भजन सुन रहे हैं. Does not lead to anything. आप इसी संसार में अटके रहोगे. भक्ति alone is not enough. हम अच्छे बने रहेंगे. I am a good person. I don't need this. Does not lead to ज्ञान. You will still remain stuck in this. हम ज्ञान एक्वायर कर लेंगे by reading scriptures 24/7. मिलेगा ही नहीं. All it will do is fuel further your ego. Right? So you have to have all 3 in the right order and constantly being practiced for you to actually be able to cut asunder this tree. Sounds very difficult and it will be impossible, right? हम लोगों ने this श्लोक which we had done, Shloka 10, कि this is like why is it that we all fail to see him and fail to recognize his truth if it's the greatest open secret, if he's seated inside of us? Why is it so difficult, right? And Bhagwan Ji says, actually, it is very difficult. It's impossible if you are operating from the wrong space. If you're operating from a space of ego, milega hi nahi. You'll never be able to see him. You'll never be able to discern him. But the moment you surrender your ego, he will become available to you immediately. Make yourself eligible with the right purpose and the right bhav. He will become available to you very easily. So it's not that difficult. It's that switch ho jayega na, aur jis din switch ho jayega, he will become available to us immediately. Kavita, will you read with us?
Connection. This chapter began with the description of the world in the shape of a tree symbolizing ignorance. Thereafter, the Lord explained how it could be cut asunder with a sharp-edged axe of non-involvement by resorting to a total self-surrender to the Lord. He also described the power and effectiveness of the individualized self. Now, the Lord describes both these entities in a different manner.
Vavimau no. Vavimo purusho loke.
Vabhimau purushau loke
Sharashchakshar eva cha.
Sharah Shakshara eva cha
Shara sarvani bhutani.
Sharah Sarvani Bhutani
Kutasthokshara uchyate.
Kudasthokshara Utyache. The world comprises two entities, one perishable and the other imperishable. All the physical forms are perishable and the Kutastha is known as imperishable. The perishable and imperishable entities. The entire universe of objects and beings comprises of two types of entities. One type is perishable, the other imperishable. All physical forms constitute the perishable aspect. They keep on changing all the time so that their shapes vary from moment to moment. The entire universe of matter has this characteristic, even though it may appear to be tangible and unchangeable. Distinct from this aspect is that the individualized self, which is immutable and imperishable. It exists at all the times, witnessing the changes and transformation occurring in the physical form through which it is manifested. In this shloka, two words have been used which need some elaboration. One is the kutastha. Kuta stands for the anvil fixed firmly in the ground in the smithy. It is on the anvil that the things are given their shapes by blows of hammer. The anvil itself undergo no change, though it witnesses all the changes in the things which are shaped on it. Thus, the individualized self, indicated by the word kutastha, as it is itself unchangeable, witnessing all the changes around. The other word is purusha. The life principle is called purusha because it dwells in the pur city of the physical form. The domain of physical form is the Sharap Purusha or the perishable entity. And the individualized self is Akshara Purusha or the imperishable entity dwelling in the physical form.
So this is again, we've studied a whole chapter on this, right? Does anyone remember what the name of the chapter or what the principle was?
Kshetragya Vibhagya. Chapter 13.
Field and the farmer, right? The field is the perishable, constantly changing. We've talked about it from science also with the atoms, constantly changing. And the farmer is the imperishable, right? So one thing I do want to share here is how do we identify with the farmer and not the field? And this is similar to what Tuina was saying earlier, which is you identify with what you love. So your identity takes form of whatever you give love and attention to. So you love playing cricket, cricketer. You love being a father, I'm a father. You love being a person who's studious, study. All of these things that you give attention to as what you love, they form your identity.
Or
And
if
we
you
get
dislike
attached,
something.
or you dislike something, even trauma.
Much.
Trauma. Because
Whatever you give
everything,
energy to.
everything, right? Because that also forms, I'm not that type of person. You're giving it energy, you're giving it attention. All of this becomes part of your identity. And our entire identity is formed because of samsara. That's the only way we build our identity in the world. As we grow up as children, what are your likes? What are your passions? What is your ambition? What do you want to do when you grow up? What are you good at? Arey, Vedant, you're such a good boy. You're so good at this. I'm so good at this. My identity is that. Everything that we've built as an identity comes from sansar. You want to identify with the farmer, only way to do it is bhakti, fall in love with the farmer. When you start loving Bhagwanji, when you start loving the farmer, that prem bhav is where you will transform. It's the same like Radha and Krishna, right? How to get to Krishna? Through Radha bhav. That's why Radha is always next to Krishna. Radha is what? Love. Radha is prem. To get to Krishna, you have to go through Radha. You have to have Radha bhav. Right?
And then how do we develop love? We develop more and more love comes when with more understanding.
Knowledge.
With more understanding. There is no other way. That's why you saw in the six chapters of Bhakti Yoga, we only talked about how to understand Bhagwanji better, how to recognize him in this perishable world around us. That was our focus. Where do you see Bhagwanji? How do you recognize Bhagwanji? How do you see him in the world around you? Right? That was the focus. The more you understand him, the more you see him, the more you experience him around you, the more you focus on him everywhere, right? The more you're involved with him, the more you're thinking about him all the time. The more you will think about it, the more energy is going in that direction, then it is not going in other directions. Aapka mind, it takes the form of whatever it thinks about all the time. And that is why, and the mind does not know, does not understand not. Right? It only understands whatever you're putting energy into. That is why they, in some of these trick books where they try and teach you how to transform your life, they'll always talk about like how you need to think about or transform your language into more positive language rather than going by the negative language. Like if I don't want Vedant to come and disturb us, and it's very natural to come and say, Vedant, our class is starting right now. Please don't disturb us. That's it. All he will think about is, oh, this class and disturb. Class, disturb. Class, disturb. So he's going to come and disturb the class. But if you focus on telling him, Vedant, during this class, I want you to do this work, read this book. Okay, watch this thing. You focus on what you need to do rather than what you don't need to do. The child will remember that. So instead of telling him, don't do this, you tell him, this is what I want you to do. Then all his mind is thinking about what I need to do, I need to do, I need to do, I need to do. But if he has to think about what he doesn't need to do, then he will just, and he has to go back to it. So in fast, if you think about, I don't want to eat, I can't eat food, I can't eat food, I can't eat food. All you will do is think about food all day long. We all have experienced it. Jis din fast hoga, usi din sab kuch khane ka man karega. Right? Because all we are thinking about is that today I cannot eat food. वैसे आपका fast होता रहेगा पूरा दिन. How many days you've not eaten a single morsel of food all day and your first meal is at night? You've not had water for hours together because you were doing some other stuff. Bina soche. We've all done it. So physically there is no problem. Huh? We all can do that fast. जिस दिन बोल दिया आज fast है, आज मुझे ये नहीं खाना है, that's all that I'm focusing on. That's all that my mind is transforming itself into. That's the problem. So instead of when we do fast, instead of saying कि आज मैं ये नहीं खाऊंगा, you will think about what you will do. You will have better energy to perform or go through your fast. Right? So our mind takes the shape of whatever we give energy to. Now, if you think more and more about it, you do more nididhyasana on it, you will start to realize how many aspects of your life this principle will employ itself in. Whether it's fasting, whether it's talking to people, whether it is manifesting various things in life, whether it is transforming the experience you have with life, you have the transforming the experience you have with people. Just this one principle in different ways, applied to every aspect of your life. And the same principle is what will get you to Bhagwanji also. Whatever you give energy to, your mind will become the shape of that. उसी के बेसिस पे पुराने जमाने में जब वो लोग नाम के ऊपर इतनी तवज्जो रखते थे, इसलिए कि बोलते थे यू गिव द नेम, भगवान जी का नाम दो. दिन में 10 बार अपने बच्चे का नाम लोगे तुम, यू विल टेक द नेम ऑफ भगवान जी. right? So these are all smaller, grosser aspects of the same principle. You can do one more, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now, okay, a couple of things. Putas and Purush, right? Because Purush will be used in the next shloka also. Putas. Put is, so if you have seen a blacksmith, like the guy who will make shoes or repairs shoes, right? He has this black little thing and he always puts shoes on top of that and then he will hit it or like, fix your shoe on top of that. That is one of the things that is called कूट, क्योंकि उसपे हम चीजों को कूटते हैं. Okay, and that कूट does not move. It is immovable, very heavy, does not change. Everything else that comes on top of it moves, changes, transforms. And you use a hammer to change it, right? That is one type of food that is being referred to here. The principle is the same, right? In the चक्की में एक नीचे का एक वो होता है and एक बीच का एक part होता है which does not move and does not change. That is food. उसके ऊपर की एक चीज है जो चलती रहती है. And then you put all the grains in it, वो पूरा पिस जाता है. It gets transformed, right? That lower thing of the चक्की, that middle thing is the कूट. वो चलता, वो move नहीं करता. Everything else against it moves. और वो कूटता है उसको, right? You will have seen certain, पुराने जमाने में, अब तो है नहीं, but पुराने जमाने में they used to be बैल को जब वो पानी निकालने के लिए या फिर to do some farming related activities, the bell will move around in circles, okay? But he's tied to a center which does not move. So that is also one type of kut, things that don't move, okay? So he's saying that kutastha is the principle, the consciousness principle that does not change, does not move. Everything else transforms against that. So you see things moving against that backdrop which just does not change. Right? So we have to anchor ourselves to that which is kutastha. We cannot anchor ourselves. Now imagine yourself going into Ganga for a dip. You go into Ganga for a dip. What do? एक साइड में बैंक पे कोई चीज वो होती है, एक पोल होता है, right? Against that there is a chain. So you or a rope, you tie that around you and then you go into Ganga. Okay, this is the way you need to be in the world. The world is like that flowing Ganga, constantly transient. It's constantly moving. It's constantly changing. It's completely impermanent. And it has a lot of glamour with a lot of wave. It comes with a lot of speed. You go into it, वो आपको बहा ले जाएगी. You don't have कितने भी अच्छे swimmer हो. Like, I am very smart. I'm very good swimmer. I have done English channel. I've crossed English channel. I can go into Ganga and swim. बस ले जाएगी गंगा. Right? So the only way to make yourself safe while entering Ganga is what? That you anchor yourself to principles, you anchor yourself to the truth, anchor yourself to Bhagwanji. And with that chain around you, which is tied to this anchor is Bhagwanji. And the chain is what? What will keep us anchored to that kutas is the scriptures, the swadhyay, the bhakti, right? Basically the scriptures and the truth in them. Tie yourself with that and then go into the world. Then you will not be swayed and you will not get lost. So that is kutas, right? Then the word they've used is purush, right? So now they will in this word, you've seen, right? Purushottam Yoga. The chapter name is Purushottam Yoga. So he's calling Bhagwanji Purush. And Purush bhi kis tarah ka Purush? Sabse uttam Purush. Sabse uttam Purush. So what is Purush in the first place? That is being explained here. Purush is one that lives within the Pur. Right? This body is called the Pur, the city of 7 gates. So in the 7 gates are the 7 openings in the body. Your nose, two of these, 4, your eyes, and then your 2 ways of excretion. Right? So these are the 7, 2 to 4 to 6 to 8. 9, 2 to 4, sorry, not eyes. 2 to 4, 5 mouth, and the 2 modes of excretion, 7. So it's the city of 7 gates. This so इसको कहते हैं पुरी, इसलिए पुर का ईश, and one that dwells in this in the city is the Purush. And then they said that there are two types of Purush, Akshar Purush and Kshar Purush. Kshar Purush is the physical form, the Kshetragya form. And Akshar Purush is the Jivatma inside of us. The Akshar, the farmer, the witness of everything that is changing, that backdrop against which everything changes. But that backdrop doesn't change. The Kutastha is the Akshar Purush. The Kutastha is the Jivatma. And Jivatma is part of Paramatma. Okay? So Paramatma, so Jivatma is part of Paramatma, and Jivatma is what gives energy to this body to act. Now, the next shloka, we will then talk about more about the Kshar Purush, the Akshar Purush, and we will talk about, we'll connect it back to the previous shlokas. And when we'll talk about how this Akshar Purush inhabits. We've done this before in the earlier part of the chapter, where the Akshar Purush, the Jivatma, pulls the various, the subtle body together. The day it says, okay, now I want to subject myself to, I want to subject myself to the three gunas, it attracts to itself the subtle body, all the senses in their subtle form, the mind, the intellect, the ego, the chitta, all the memories, the habits, right? It pulls itself together, and from there on, it starts its journey into the physical world. So that is what we will talk about in the next shlokas. Okay, and why is there this confusion? Why do it feel like I am the experiencer, and how come there is this Bhagwanji who dwells inside of me, and you're constantly saying he's not affected by anything. He's not impacted by anything. He's just a witness, even though he's giving power to everything, right? So we'll go back into those concepts in the next couple of shlokas. Okay. Put the time being stop here, or do the next shloka next? We have 17, 18, 19, 24 shlokas. Okay, so next class we can finish this chapter. Okay. So we'll do like, what do you call it? Say quiz. Chapter becoming too heavy or what?
I can start
Yes.
with that. For me, there were two takeaways that connected with me. First was the fact that how I have to keep my ego in check. And that realization has come by the fact that even my basic breathing power or my digestive power, be it when it comes to food or any kind of understanding or knowledge, that's only because of His grace and because of God's grace. So that I want to keep remembering, so that my ego is always in that. That's not me, but it is only because of God's grace. And the fact that I think that really I like was the whole concept of the anchor and the chain concept of how living life and the flow of the current about just the worldly things on an everyday basis. Um, the chain is the principle and the anchor is God. And through the principle, being connected to God as I face it. And one last thing about what I choose to identify with is what I have to take in. So it's dependent on my likes and dislikes. So I have to, and what I will become is what I take in. So be it if it's food or if it's just general things, the end and the only thing is the ultimate reality, which is connecting to God. And that should be my goal of always identifying with the only permanent. So that is.
Very nice, Ritesh. Just the last part. What we become is not a function of our likes and dislikes. It becomes a function of our likes and dislikes only when we have no control over our mind. Because that's all that we are doing, right? But in reality, it is a function of whatever we give energy to, which means whatever we think about. Wherever thoughts go, that's where energies are going. So if physically I'm present in this satsang, but my mind is somewhere else, my thoughts are somewhere else, I'm thinking about something else, then that's where I'm giving energy to. I'm not giving energy to the satsang. So physically it doesn't matter. Energy goes where thoughts go. And wherever thoughts go and they dwell, the more they spend time in that world, whichever that world is, that is the person I become. That's the mind takes the shape of the thoughts that it dwells in. So that's why Swadhyaya is so important, because of that Bhuta and the chain example, and to remind ourselves of this reality on a daily basis. हम बोलते रहेंगे कि हमें ये इसके बारे में पसंद नहीं है, हमें वो उसके बारे में पसंद नहीं है, and we keep focusing on all the negative things about people, eventually all those negative things about those people will become a part of me. I will become literally all the things I claim to hate. इसलिए लोगों के साथ जब हम बात करते हैं, व्यवहार करते हैं, we must always focus on their good things. And remember, कोई perfect नहीं है. There's only one perfection in this world, which is him. Everything and everybody else is imperfect, which means 10 negatives हैं तो 10 positives भी हैं हर आदमी में. If all I do is focus on negatives, I'll become that. If all I do is focus on positives, I will imbibe those positives. Just as surely I will imbibe their negatives if that's what I focus on. Thank you.
May I go next? Okay. So my takeaway is to masticate and move on of VBGP. For that, the transformative power is needed. So that comes only from him. So the more I love him, I spend time with him and pay attention, and that is where the transformation lies in. More the connection I have to develop with him, and then see him all around. That is what the practice point is for me.
Amazing.
Thank you.
You Kavita.
I'll go next. So for me, the Purusha explanation of Purusha. So even though the meaning is known, I have never the actual this thing. Today we have explained about body with the 7 gates, the city with the 7 gates, and Shara Purusha and Akshara Purusha. So even in Purusha, we are talking about the 2 parts to it. What is perishable, what is imperishable. So that's the takeaway for me today.
Very nice. And then at the class we will learn about the Shakti of the Purush, which is the Porush. We use the word Porush a lot, right? Which is basically Ichha Shakti, willpower. So we'll talk about that in the next shloka. Thank you.
I can go next. So I had read a very beautiful quote by Rumi saying that try something different, surrender. So I think today's chapter kind of sums it up, that just surrender to God. And surrendering to God is through, being, and how do you surrender? When you are in constant reminder of him, and through Nam Japs and through all your daily practice and principles, that's when you do your things, you surrender to him, and then you see the magic which will unfold in your own life. So yeah, I think that is how I would sum it up.
Correct. Surrender basically means that you stop resisting life. You stop resisting life for what it is. You accept the flow of life and enjoy every moment of what it brings. That is surrender. Because जो हो रहा है अच्छे के लिए ही हो रहा है ना. रेजिस्टेंस हमारी तब आती है जब हमें लगता है कुछ सही नहीं है, यहाँ से कहीं और जाना है. What is right now in this moment is not enough, it's not correct. That is where resistance comes in. And now you're trying to change your moment right now.
And to add to this, right? Surrender is not a one-time thing. It is like trying to tiptoe on your toes. You will keep falling and you keep surrendering. Keep falling, you'll keep getting up.
Surrender is moment to moment, moment to moment.
VVGPs will come in such a rush that you will forget to surrender and you will choose to take control of the outcome. I need this, I want to get this. And that's when you have to remember, that's where you need that Shakti, that wisdom that says, no, I surrender it. I will do my effort, but I surrender the outcome. I surrender. I surrender. It's
और
all
हम
for
लोगों के
purpose.
लिए सबसे डिफिकल्ट चीज है, राइट? बिकॉज ऑल आवर लाइव्स वी हैव बीन टॉट टू टेक कंट्रोल ऑल द टाइम इन एवरी पार्ट ऑफ आवर लाइव्स. ये सबसे डिफिकल्ट चीज है, और ये तभी आएगा, किसके थ्रू आएगा? बाय बिल्डिंग आउट अ हैबिट. बार 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 बार. एंड देन योर नाम जप एवरी डे टू रिमाइंड अस कि ये करना है यार. भूल ही जाते हैं कि करना है.
And when you speak to your seniors, your grandparents, and you will see that this thing is what they always talk about, that leave it, Bhagwan ki ichha. And that really, because of the wisdom that they have experienced over a period of time, they have learned that that's the only way, and that is the right way. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the more you spend time with older, all our parents are getting older, right? So so I had the opportunity of witnessing my father interact with all his siblings for Rakhi, and I was in Bombay there. I was like, they're all 80s. The conversation they're having is so different. It's so at peace and so grateful about everything because they know eventually everything turned out okay, right? Without and they so the so, and all of us will experience that as well. But as part of the journey, we'll take stress because we're not implementing the Gita.
I'll go.
Yeah.
So I think, what you said, that, we either need to have faith in God or faith in our ego, right? That's just two ways to it. And currently, I think, because, ego gives us a huge sense of control, we generally, gravitate towards that. But I think surrender, what, everyone, I mean, Smita said, everyone's speaking of, I mean, we finally need to surrender to him, and finally, he's the anchor. Like, this whole story that you spoke about, life being like a Ganga, that there's this constant ebb and flow of everything. There's a lot of glamour around it, but everything is transient, right? We need to understand the impermanence of it all and finally anchor ourselves in him. I think that is a huge practice point, to believe that he'll take us through small steps. That I mean, last week there was this whole incident where it happened, and Abhinav, I remembered you because you keep saying that either, if anything, I mean, either it's a blessing if something good happens, if not, take it as a lesson and learn from it and move on. I actually tried to I mean, that's what I remembered at that point in time, and I think I've been able to accept it and move on uh, in a much better way. Otherwise, I mean, my reaction otherwise would have been very strong. I mean, I think those are very small things, but I see, if you start applying these principles, it at some point it helps you, accept and deal with things very differently.
That's beautiful, beautiful sharing. And I'll add one more thing. It will help you accept and deal with the things without those things taking control over you. When you get involved from ownership perspective and control perspective, you think about it a lot more than you need to. ऐसे कैसे? क्यों हुआ? Why did it happen? Or now deal with it when it comes. If it's not come, I won't worry. Why worry about it? Bhagwan ji will sort it. Amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Very, very nice. And Sanchita, इसको जैसे आपने कहा ना कि lesson or a blessing. Another one that I always remember, like one little idiom that helps me. मेरी इच्छा हुई तो बहुत अच्छा, और हरी इच्छा हुई तो और भी अच्छा, है ना? मेरी तो इच्छाएं बहुत छोटी छोटी हैं. So if whatever I wanted actually transpired, that's beautiful. I'm happy. But अगर जो मैंने कहा था वो नहीं हुआ, that means something that फिर किसकी इच्छा हुई? भगवान की इच्छा हुई ना. भगवान की इच्छा is even better than my इच्छा, because that's for a much greater good than me. Then you feel even happier in that situation. So अपनी इच्छा तो अच्छा, वरना हरी इच्छा तो और भी अच्छा.
So Tuina wanted to apply for this yoga thingy, right? Was it 3 month or a commitment or something every week? Yoga YouTube.
Kavita, the one that you had introduced me to, the lady at Makina.
Okay, so she wanted to do it. She missed the deadline and she got the message, and she was just like, "Oh, it wasn't meant to be." 2 weeks later, she fractured her leg, and now she realized that that's exactly why It happened.
Bhagwan ji
भगवान
will
जी
not
knew
be able to
कि बस
complete it.
तेरे आपके प्रारब्ध में तो फ्रैक्चर लिखा ही है, तो तुम योगा कैसे करोगे? And it was very expensive course. So we are like,
Not
see,
very expensive, but yeah.
That's
but-
why I was wondering what are those crutches like? Who?
हाँ,
I mean, I could
they're
see
not
it.
they're not decorative items. They're not.
That's because-
It is. Yeah. Mr. Lakshi.
So the acceptance, my takeaway is every situation we have to accept and surrender. The acceptance is make you feel lighter first, and then surrender is completely, it's not in your hand, everything, whatever you're doing. But sometimes you forgot in the morning time when you start the day, yeah, you can remember everything is coming through the God, everything you are doing for him, everything is coming through him. Like, but when you the energy is slow, lower and lower, then we completely forgot. Then again, we have to pause and we have to think about that is the difficult part now. So the morning and evening, I can feel the difference. Like whenever the energy is low, you cannot remember like this is God only. It's doing within you. So again, that phase I am in now. So
Very
I'll
good.
keep on trying.
Very good reflection.
So Visalakshi, since you are now completely aware of it, there are two things that have happened with you, right? One is that you have fully understood what needs to be done. Okay, but yaad nahi rehta, right? And the second part is you become aware of it as well, right? So now you are in a space where you're like, अच्छा, अब क्या कर सकते हैं for me to remember it also? Because if I remember it, I know its importance and I will try my best to implement it. But याद ही नहीं रहता तो कैसे करें, right? So how do you improve that smriti is the reason we have anushtans as a part of our curriculum, right? So we have, for example, we have an anushtan ongoing right now till November 12th, right? So I'd say there is one more addition. So Shiva Pradikshotram is being added to it. But as one of the things, a lot of things in this anushtan, every year the anushtan is different, right? So in this anushtan, most of the stuff is like you do one time, right? Bhagwan ji ke samne baith ke bolo. But then there is one part which is Hanuman Chalisa, where you have chosen a certain number of Hanuman Chalisas, which are not one or three, like minimum to 7 karni hai aapko, but preferably at least 21, right? So for people who are early in their Anushtan, you can't potentially, like for Shalini Didi, it's now a piece of cake to sit in one time and do 21, right? But if you've taken 21, you won't be able to do 21 in one sitting with all other parts of your life because you've not arranged your life like that, right? Life has a certain way of being. People around you have a certain way of being, right? So what happens is when you take on this Anushtan and you say, I'm doing 21 Hanuman Chalisas, you will end up needing to do this constantly throughout the day. हर एक घंटे में, and you will realize actually उसको करना है सिर्फ 1.5 minute लगेगा. But in that 1.5 minute, you have to do it every hour. Right? You'll do a few and then you'll do a few later in the evening. But throughout the day, literally every hour, you're reminding yourself with that Hanuman Chalisa. And Hanuman Chalisa is nothing but surrender. Hanuman ji is the epitome of surrender. Epitome of surrender, because he fully surrendered himself to Bhagwan ji, and that is why he became the source through which entire Ramayana plays out, and not entire Ramayana, but that entire piece where he was able to do Bhagwan ji ka kaam, right? How many things he did for him. Oh, he was able to help Lakshman. He was the one who took the message to Sita ji. He was the one जिन्होंने उसको क्या कहते हैं लंका को जलाया था, right? All those aspects are attributable to him because he fully surrendered himself to Bhagwan ji and everything was Hey Ram, and Ram ji के साथ ही उन्होंने सब कुछ किया. So
Without expectations also, right? No expectations right there.
yeah, that is what is the definition of surrender, right? So he's the epitome of surrender. For us to inculcate surrender in us, that's the reason to do Hanuman Chalisa. And that is why Hanuman Chalisa was the first thing we started as a part of this Anushtan on 17 June. Okay. So that now you will start to understand why this is important, why Anushtans are important, because otherwise we don't remember. It is impossible to remember. And you think yourself, yeah, I will do it without Anushtan, without his help. Hum yaad rakh lenge. I will remind myself today morning and today I will remember. होएगा ही नहीं. होएगा ही नहीं. क्यों? क्योंकि माया is दुरतत्या. It is his power. And his power is not something that you can get past by yourself. Only he will help you get past his power. So you should be diligent with the Anushthan now, and after November, we will start the Anushthan of Nam Jap. Become diligent with that too. That is the way to remind yourself through the entire day, and you will see yourself transforming. You will realize now you're able to remember him in ways and in situations that you never did before. बच्चों ने कुछ कर दिया, provoke हो गए आप, सुबह you have to send kids to school, all that stress you will start to transform. वो जिस चीज में आपको एकदम से आपके मुंह से आवाज निकल जाती थी, to tell kids to go to school, suddenly now that you will start to see that that thing has started to loosen its hold over you. Those situations, those people have started to loosen their hold over you because you're doing Anushthan. And without you doing anything, he is operating through you.
No, you're not getting started.
And it's real. I'm talking about, like, I'm talking from my own experience. And it will be always like thoda, suddenly you will find a difference.
Yeah, sure. I will do.
Thank you.
I'll go next. So here we talked about how to be firm in the principles. I think that is really important now that we know the principles little bit, but we are not able to implement it whenever there's a situation sometimes which is not in our control. It just consumes me. So like how to be anchored in the principles is like to identify with him, with do bhakti, fall in love with him. So yeah, I think just thinking about him as well will remind us of the principles and will help us to be like um to follow the principles. And yeah, so that is one thing. But then so I have a question. When you said that gyan will come later when we do karma yoga and bhakti yoga, right? So I know that I'm not able to do, obviously, I'm not able to do whatever is mentioned here in karma as well. I'm not able to detach myself from every situation. And the means of perception, there's so many means of perception, expectations, pride, and all those things. I have not been able to give up all those. Though, yeah, bhakti is there, little bit, surrender has come in some situations. So if I don't move past this, I don't know how much time this will take. So the Gyan will never come. Until then, if I read the next few chapters, I will not understand them.
So, good question, very good question. Something I have pondered over myself also sometimes. Okay. Agar आपका ज्ञान क्या है, right? Gyan is like water that gets poured into us, which is, and we are a vessel, है ना? अब अगर आपका vessel ही गंदा है, खूब मिट्टी लगी हुई है उस vessel में, even if pure water is poured into it, right? You put distilled water into that dirty vessel, the water will become muddy, right? Because there is mud in the vessel, correct? तो वो आपको क्लीन वाटर तो फिर भी नहीं दिखेगा. अगर क्लीन वाटर नहीं है तो आपको कुछ दिखेगा नहीं ना क्लियरली. You get what I'm saying, right? So that is why it is important that we cleanse ourselves. We cleanse ourselves. We clean the vessel. Now the thing is that how do I clean the vessel? So the cleaning of the vessel itself is a process of pouring water into it only. Now we are not empty vessels. Children are empty vessels. Easier to clean them. उनकी पुरानी habits ये वो चीजें निकालना आसान है. We are actually filled vessels. At this age, we are all filled with all kinds of ideas around how life should be led, and we are full of that, right? So we are now, imagine yourself sitting, there is a vessel which is filled with, and this is an experiment you should do at home. Maybe I'll do it in the next class, right? We do it for the children's class to help them explain this. You take a vessel of water and you put some color into it. Okay, red, green, blue. Now it's become colored water. The way to make it clean again is you keep pouring clean water into that vessel. As you keep pouring more and more clean water into it, the dirty water, it keeps getting clearer and clearer as the water starts to flow out, right? the water will start to flow out, and dhire 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 that color will start to reduce, and ultimately after long enough water has been poured into it, it will become completely clean again, right? It's the start with that. So that is what we are trying to do through our process. तो ज्ञान is also part of this whole experience. It's not कि हम खाली कर्मयोग कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि अगर खाली कर्मयोग, see कर्मयोग के साथ start किया, but now today you've reached, and like you said, you don't implement everything, correct? You don't implement everything today, and yet you have now learned, you're going through Gyan Yoga, and this Gyan Yoga will help settle your intellect into more of a Nishchayatmika buddhi. Your mental muscle, your physical muscle will become stronger and stronger. It's like now you are starting to go on a marathon. You want to run 42 kilometers. आज हम कहाँ हैं और 42 kilometers के लिए हमें कहाँ होना है? There is no way today you will be able to run 42 kilometers. If you do, you will break something. So you always start small, and that's what you're doing. You're doing your swadhyay, you're doing the satsang, you're doing manan, you're being aware, यहाँ पे मैं कर रही हूँ, यहाँ नहीं कर रही हूँ. You're beginning to become aware of that this is the way I should be living, and this is not the way but I'm not being this. You're beginning to become aware of all of these things, right? So your process has already started. Your purification process is already underway. And it will happen. It will happen. Now, it does not matter how many years or how many janam ka humne kachra jama kar rakha hai. It does not matter. It's like, जब light on होती है तो वो एकदम से on होती है. Right? In a dark room, whether that room has been dark for 5 minutes or whether that room has been dark for 500 years. जब लाइट जलती है एकदम से सारा अंधेरा चला जाता है, राइट? इट डज नॉट हैपन कि लाइट जली, अभी ये रूम तो 5 मिनट पहले ही अंधेरा हुआ था तो टक से सारा जल गया, बट ये रूम 500 साल से 500 years it has been darkened, so it will slowly light will go and creep across the room. नहीं होता, राइट? नहीं होता ऐसा. लाइट एकदम से जल जाती है. सो ऑल योर accumulated prarabdha, whatever number of ages of life you have, everything will get extinguished and you will achieve enlightenment immediately.
But that is after I follow all these
After you have
effort.
cleansed yourself, right? But that cleansing yourself, like what I'm telling you, is that cleansing yourself isn't a linear process. It is not a linear process कि हम पहले पूरे बर्तन को सारा साफ करेंगे, चमक जाएगा और उसके बाद पानी आएगा. Because we are not an empty vessel. So that process will happen. Your shuddhi and your gyan will happen together. The gyan will help you in further shuddhikaran, through better bhakti and better karma.
So I'll give you
Wherever
another,
I was earlier, I will keep
I'll-
improving my karma, keep improving my bhakti, which will keep improving my ability to retain gyan.
so I'll give you another example. All right.
So you're you are seeping gyan inside of you. It is gyan which is telling you that which is causing that awareness in the first place. Without that gyan, you would not have had this awareness in the first place. This takeaway has come from the fact that there is gyan that has seeped inside of you. It's part of you now. And that awareness can never be undone again. You get what I'm saying, right? And as you keep cleansing yourself, more and more gyan will keep seeping inside of you. So you don't worry about how long that journey is. Just focus on enjoying the journey. Because know that you are whole and complete today also. See, हम लोग पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदम करते हैं. अभी तुम्हारे अंदर क्या हो रहा है ना? You are feeling incomplete. And you're feeling unhappy with where you are. You're feeling worried about where you are. कि यार ये तो I am like this, I'm like that, I'm like this, I'm like that. भैया मुझे तो वहां जाना है. वो है राम. Look at his आचरण. Look at my आचरण. कैसे पहुंचेंगे वहां तक हम? Impossible है. That is not the space to operate from. The space to operate from is that Bhagwan Ji wants me to be here right now in this space. And I'm whole and complete with all my flaws. Just I'm supposed to be exactly here. You know why? Because it is his Leela. उन्होंने ये लीला बनाई, उन्होंने ये प्ले बनाया और हर एक को एक एक पार्ट दे दिया. I am playing exactly the part that Bhagwan Ji wants me to play in this moment. I am the perfect piece in his puzzle at this moment. And I will move through his puzzle. So my job, I am not attached to my own enlightenment, because that is also me being selfish. I am happy to play the part that he wants me to play in exactly the way he wants me to play it. If he wants that right now, the player should be Lula, the player should be Langda, the player should be Andha, that's what that actor will be. Because that is the part that is required for his Leela, for his story to get completed. Correct? So I am whole and complete in exactly the way Bhagwan ji wants me to be. और मेरे पास इस वक्त जो VVGPs हैं उनके साथ मैं best possible way से act करूंगी and then surrender everything to Bhagwan ji. Make sense?
You were saying something, Abhinav, I guess.
Oh no, that's fine. I think Tuina come.
Okay. Okay.
I can go. Sorry, my video is off today. So for me, though I've been bits and pieces in the class today, on and off, but this last takeaway is so powerful that the fact that complete surrender, giving up your ego and love him immensely, so that to understand that whatever is happening right now in my life is the best that can happen, to fit his scheme of things and not to question that. And like Bhageshri, I also have this issue about, I'm much aligned to Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, but when it comes to Gyan, I fail, I feel. I sometimes I don't get the scriptures, and there's so much, even, in an ashram circle, there's so much of scriptures getting discussed, and I feel very bad and low about it sometimes that I'm not there yet. But Tuhina, thank you today. I think it is meant to be that way. Where I am, I'm supposed to be, and I'm just going to pick up the pieces. And wanted to just share one very personal experience which I had this week. So I'd come down to Bombay for two reasons. One was to watch Raja Dheeraj because it's on Krishna, and my sister said that it's the best, the first musical which has happened on Krishna. I said, I'm coming down. I want to see it. And it was so much of love. What you said is about God and his Leela. It was about his Leela, and it is so much of love that it encompasses you. And then that moment, you feel that there's nothing to worry. He's all there. He's all around us. It's just that once you're away and after a few days, you start faltering again. So to hold on to this powerful, what you told Bhageshri from her question, what came up is that is my takeaway. And one more thing, I also came down because I wanted to go to the ashram. And I couldn't go because I just before going, a day before, I was told that one of the Satvijis with whom I wanted to go and discuss something, she's not there, so I cancelled. And I felt very low about it, that I didn't go for Sri Hari. And when Sanchita went for work also, I would have cried. I said, I'm not doing things right. My motive is not right. And I did. But he doesn't think that way. And why I'm sharing it is because on Friday night, my husband calls me and says, you have to fly down to Delhi. I'm getting your ticket from here to Delhi, and you'll fly out of Delhi because you have to sign some property documents which cannot wait. And this came up suddenly. So, when I now look back, he knew that I had to fly to Delhi. I had to do this, and he stopped me going, and he said, I'm there always. And that is something which I wanted to share, because he doesn't think of your bad, because God too cannot think that he can't punish you. He only loves you. And when something doesn't happen, it means there's some other plan which you can't see. And I just wanted to share this bit because it made me think, and I'm feeling bad that I even questioned him.
Lovely takeaway, Rangoli. अपनी इच्छा तो अच्छा और हरी इच्छा तो और भी अच्छा.
Yeah, that's what you said. I remembered immediately.
Very nice. Thank you.
Sanchita, can you help us with closing shlokas?
No, Smita.
Oh, Smita did?
No?
Smita shared. She talked about surrender. Sanchita, closing shlokas. We will watch the recording to confirm.
I did. I already shared, yeah.
I'll watch the recording again, clearly.
You saw how much suspicion she looked at me? Like, oh my God, you have a brain that works?
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ अस्तु मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदा पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमदाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ
Narayan, Narayan, everyone.